going to tell you an Irish folk tale. I think all types of people would enjoy this story. It's called The Leprechaun and the Red Ribbons. Now, leprechauns are very tricky little people. They also have to be honest. So if you ask them where their pot of gold is, they have to tell you. Well, little Miss Molly knew that. And as she was walking home one day down the lane, a beautiful morning, she suddenly heard a little tap, tap, tapping. She didn't know where the tapping was coming from, and at first she thought it was from a bird or something, maybe like a woodpecker. Well, she followed the sound, and it led her to a hedge. And she carefully parted the leaves and looked down, and there she found a little man tapping away at a little tiny pair of shoes. Well, she was very surprised, but she knew not to take her eye off that little man because he would disappear if she did. So keeping her eyes on it, she said, "Hello, and who are you?" The little man was so surprised he looked up. "Oh, well, I'm wee little Tom, Tom the leprechaun. And who may you be?" She said, "Oh, she was Molly." And what was he doing? Well, he told her he was fixing the fairy's shoes, and that's what his job was. So Molly asked then, "Is it true that you have a pot of gold?" "Oh, yes," he said, he did have a pot of gold, and it was well hidden. Well, she didn't want to lose him, so before he knew what was happening, she snatched him up in her hand and held him in front of her. And so he couldn't get away. She said, "Please now, will you show me your pot of gold? I would very much like to have some gold. It would help our family a lot." So he said, well, was she sure? And he could give her, there were many other things he could give her. No, she wanted the pot of gold. Well, he did that. He tried to trick her at first because he started to tell her that the cows were getting out of the pasture, and she started to look away and then realized and looked back. He was pulling out all his tricks. Well, finally he gave up and he said, "Okay, I'll tell you where to go. Let's go down the lane." We have to go down the lane and through the forest and over some fields. So she went along as he directed her, through the fields and across a river and over a hill, and got to this pasture full of bushes. And he led her almost to the middle and pointed to a bush and said, "Right there, if you dig right here under this bush, you will find a pot of gold." Well, there were all these bushes around, and the ground was really hard, and of course she hadn't brought a shovel with her. So she pulled her red ribbon out of her hair and tied it onto the branch of the bush so she'd know which bush to come back to. And she thanked the leprechaun, and he said, "Well, do you have any more need for me?" She said, "No, as long as you promise not to take this red ribbon off." He swore. He said, "No problem, I will leave it there." And she ran off home to get her shovel. All the way over the brook and through the woods and down the lane, grabbed a shovel, turned around, ran all the way back. She came up and over the hill to the field, and what did she see? Every bush had a red ribbon on it. And there were over 100 bushes there. She couldn't believe it. She lost her pot of gold. There was nothing to do but turn around and go home empty-handed. And that's the story of the leprechaun